Hello, dear learners. Welcome back to the JISH Learn English podcast. I'm Shaelyn, and I'm really happy to be here with you again on your English learning journey. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you're speaking English correctly, but it still doesn't sound quite natural? Maybe your grammar is fine, but your sentences sound a bit too formal, or just not how native speakers would say them. If that sounds like you, then today's episode is going to help. I'm going to share 10 simple and practical tips to help you speak more like a native English speaker. We'll talk about how native speakers really talk, the small habits, natural expressions, and everyday words that make their English sound smooth, clear, and relaxed. And as always, I'll be speaking slowly and clearly, so it's easy for you to follow along. You can also shadow my words. That means repeating after me to practice your speaking and improve your fluency. All right, let's get started. Tip 1. Use phrasal verbs like a native. If you want to sound more like a native English speaker, one of the most important things to learn is phrasal verbs. These are expressions made up of a verb plus a small word, usually a preposition or an adverb, like up, off, in, or down. When combined, they take on new meanings, often quite different from the original verb. For example, let's take the verb give. Alone, it means to offer something. But when you say give up, it means to stop trying. Give in means to stop resisting or to agree with someone. Give away means to donate or to reveal a secret. These little words completely change the meaning. Now, why is this important for you? Because native speakers use these all the time, much more often than their more formal equivalents. For instance, instead of saying, "I will postpone the meeting," they'll more likely say, "I'll put off the meeting." Instead of, "He canceled the event," you'll hear, "He called off the event." Instead of, "She rejected my idea," you'll hear, "She shot down my idea." These expressions sound natural and conversational. Formal verbs are useful in writing, but in everyday speaking, phrasal verbs are the default. So if you rely only on basic dictionary verbs, your English might sound too stiff or robotic. The key to mastering phrasal verbs is not to memorize long lists, which often becomes overwhelming. Instead, learn them in small groups through examples and stories. Watch English videos or shows and notice when these expressions come up. Write them down in a notebook with full example sentences. And, most importantly, use them when you speak. For instance, instead of saying, "I will cancel my plans," try saying, "I'll call off my plans." Little by little, these changes will add a more native feel to your speech. Tip 2. Use contractions and reductions. In native English, people often do not say every word fully. They shorten words or join them together when speaking. This helps them speak more smoothly and quickly. If you want to sound more natural, you should learn to do the same. Let's first talk about contractions. A contraction is when you join two words into one and use an apostrophe to show that something is missing. For example, I am becomes I'm. They are becomes their, we have becomes we've, he would becomes he'd. These are correct and used all the time by native speakers. For example, instead of saying, she is going to be late, it sounds more natural to say, she's going to be late. Now let's look at reductions. These are even shorter and used often in spoken English. They are not slang, but they are more casual. Here are some common ones. Going to becomes gonna. Example, I'm gonna watch a movie. Want to becomes wanna. Example, do you wanna come? Got to becomes gotta. Example, I've gotta go now. Let me becomes lemme. Example, let me help you. These are usually not used in writing, but they are very common in speaking. If you always say the full form, like I am going to, it may sound too slow or too formal in casual conversation. So, what should you do? Start by listening to how native speakers talk in movies, videos, or podcasts. Notice how they use short forms. Then, practice speaking out loud. For example, say, I'm going to go to the store. Try saying it slowly at first, then a little faster. Practice full sentences, not just words. Over time, your speaking will sound smoother and you'll also understand native speakers better because this is how real English sounds in daily life. Tip 3. Learn blended words. In English, native speakers sometimes join two words together to make a new word. These are called blended words. The new word usually keeps some part of both original words, and it has a meaning that comes from both. These blended words are very common in modern English, especially in casual speaking, news, and social media. Native speakers use them naturally, and if you understand them, your English will sound more current and natural too. Let's look at some examples. Brunch equals breakfast plus lunch. This means a meal you eat in the late morning between breakfast and lunch. Example, we had brunch at 11 a.m. today. Smog equals smoke plus fog. This describes dirty air you might see in big cities. Example, the smog in the city made it hard to breathe. Hangry equals hungry plus angry. This is how you feel when you are so hungry that you become angry or irritated. Example, I get hangry if I skip lunch. These words are fun, useful, and often sound very modern. Native speakers use them without thinking, so it's good for you to learn what they mean and use them when you can. When you hear a new word that sounds like a mix of two other words, try to break it down. Ask yourself, is this a combination of two other words? If it is, think about what it might mean. This will help you guess the meaning even if you've never seen it before. Also, write down any blended words you hear in shows, podcasts, or social media. Try using them in your own sentences. Learning these words will help you speak in a way that sounds more natural, modern, and native-like. Tip 4. Use gender-neutral words. Native English speakers today often use gender-neutral words. That means words that do not show if someone is male or female. This is a simple but important change that helps make your English sound more modern, respectful, and natural. For example, in the past, people used to say policeman or fireman, but now we say police officer or firefighter. These words include everyone, no matter their gender. Instead of waiter or waitress, people now often say server. Instead of chairman, we say chairperson. Even the word stewardess has become less common. Today, we say flight attendant. These changes are not about grammar. They're about how language is used in real life to be polite, professional, and fair. If you use only the old gendered words, your English might sound old-fashioned or impolite, even if your grammar is correct. But when you choose modern, inclusive words, native speakers will feel that your English is thoughtful and up to date. It shows that you understand not just the words, but also the culture behind the language. So next time you're talking about someone's job or role, try using gender-neutral words. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference in how natural and respectful your English sounds. Tip number 5. Use they as a singular pronoun. In everyday English, native speakers often use the word they to talk about just one person, especially if they don't know if the person is a man or a woman. This may sound strange at first because we usually learn that they means more than one. But in real life, English speakers often say things like, "Someone left their bag here," or, "If a student needs help, they should ask the teacher." Even though someone and a student are just one person, we use they and their because we don't know the person's gender, and we don't want to guess. This is now a normal and accepted part of modern English, even in schools, workplaces, and professional writing. It helps keep our language simple, respectful, and fair to everyone. So instead of saying he or she, which sounds long or awkward, most native speakers now just say they. For example, if your friend calls, tell them I'll call back later. Learning to use they for one person may take some time, but it's a smart habit that will make your English sound more natural, more polite, and more in line with how native speakers actually talk today. Tip 6. Learn and use common English idioms. If you want to sound more like a native speaker, one of the best things you can do is learn and use common idioms. Idioms are short expressions where the meaning is different from the actual words. Native speakers use them all the time in everyday conversations. And if you never use them, your English might sound too plain or too direct. For example, if someone says, "It's raining cats and dogs," they don't really mean animals are falling from the sky. It just means it's raining very heavily. Or if someone says, "I'm feeling under the weather," they simply mean they're not feeling well. These expressions might seem confusing at first, but they're a big part of how real English sounds. You don't need to learn hundreds of idioms all at once. Just start with the most common ones, understand their meaning, and try using them in simple situations. For example, if your friend is nervous before a test, you can say, "Don't worry, just give it your best shot." That's an idiom meaning to try your best. When you add even a few idioms to your speaking, your English becomes more colorful, more expressive, and much closer to the way native speakers actually talk. Tip 7. Use linking sounds to connect your words. One thing that makes native English sound smooth and fast is how the words connect to each other. Native speakers don't pause between every word. They often link words together, so a whole sentence sounds like one long sound. For example, instead of saying "go on," with a space between the words, a native speaker might say, "go on," like it's one word, or "turn it off" might sound like "turn it off," with no break. This is called linking, and it helps speech sound more natural and fluent. Sometimes the last sound of one word joins with the first sound of the next word. For example, "I like it" sounds like "I like it." And "what are you doing" sounds like "what you doing" or "what are you doing?" To learn this, you don't need to know all the grammar rules. You just need to listen carefully to how native speakers speak and then practice copying the rhythm and flow. Try repeating short phrases or full sentences from podcasts or videos and notice how the sounds connect. This will help your speech become smoother and more native-like, and it will also make it easier for you to understand real spoken English. Tip 8. Use filler words naturally. In real conversations, native English speakers often use small words or sounds to fill pauses while they think. These are called filler words, and they help make your speech sound more natural and less robotic. Some common filler words include, well, you know, like, I mean. For example, someone might say, "well, I'm not sure." Or, "I was really surprised." These words don't add meaning, but they give the speaker time to think and make the conversation feel more relaxed. As an English learner, you don't need to overuse them, but using them naturally can help your speech sound more fluent and more like a native speaker's. Just be careful not to use them too much, especially in formal situations like job interviews or presentations. In those cases, it's better to pause silently than say, too many times. The best way to learn how native speakers use filler words is by listening to real conversations in podcasts, interviews, or casual videos. Then, try adding a few of these words into your own speaking, especially when you're thinking or hesitating. This small detail can make your English feel more real, more relaxed, and more connected to everyday speaking. Tip 9. Use everyday expressions instead of formal words. One simple way to sound more like a native speaker is to use everyday, casual expressions instead of formal or textbook-style language. In real life, native speakers often choose short, simple words in place of longer, more formal ones, especially in conversation. For example, instead of saying, "I do not know," most people say, "I don't know." Or instead of, "I am unable to come," they say, "I can't come." Or instead of, "I am very tired," they'll say, "I'm really tired," or even, "I'm super tired." These changes might seem small, but they make your English sound more natural and friendly. Native speakers also use common phrases like "no way" to show surprise, or "it's up to you" to say someone else should decide. If you always use formal English, people may understand you, but your speaking might sound stiff or unnatural. To sound more native-like, focus on using words and phrases you hear in real conversations, shows, or casual podcasts. Practice speaking with those expressions in your daily life. The more you use them, the more comfortable and fluent you will sound. Tip 10. Keep learning new words that native speakers use today. One important way to sound more like a native speaker is to keep learning new words, not just from textbooks, but from real life. English is always changing. Every year, native speakers create new words and phrases, especially in areas like technology, pop culture, social media, and daily life. If you only study old vocabulary, your English might sound a little outdated, even if your grammar is correct. For example, words like binge watch, selfie, ghosting, or adulting weren't common many years ago, but now they're used every day. Native speakers often use this kind of modern, informal language without thinking. You don't need to learn every new word out there, but staying updated with the language helps you understand people better, and it helps you sound more natural when you speak. Try learning just a few new words each week. You can find them in YouTube videos, movies, social media, or even by listening to podcasts like this one. When you hear a new word, write it down, look it up, and try using it in your own sentence. This habit keeps your vocabulary fresh and helps you feel more connected to the way native English is actually spoken today.
And that brings us to the end of our list. So those were 10 simple but powerful tips that, if you follow them regularly, can really change the way you speak English and how well you understand native speakers too. These tips are small, but they make a big difference over time. If you found this lesson helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you know someone who's learning English, please share this episode with them. They might need these tips too. I'll be back tomorrow with another helpful episode to guide you in your English journey. Until then, keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, take care of yourself.